Dream Team, it's your boy Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with beautiful photos of 20 iconic Australian birds by bird photographer Duade Patton. I hope I said that right. If I didn't, I'm so sorry. Before we jump into these birds, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. I'm excited because I think Australian birds are absolutely beautiful, man. Where we go?
G'day and welcome to the channel. In today's video I'm going to share with you photos of 20 iconic Australian species. I've been really fortunate to photograph hundreds of birds and take thousands of photos.
Oh, wow.
So I thought it would be great if I shared with you photos of 20 iconic species. Most of you have probably heard of these birds or you might have seen them, but it'd be great to have a look at them up close and we can appreciate those birds together. If that sounds interesting to you, maybe grab a cuppa and we'll go through these 20 iconic species. So whilst we've got all these birds singing around us, might as well get started on iconic species number one, and that is the Splender Faean. This bird is absolutely stunning. It's got multiple shades of blue, it's just got character. It's truly one of the highlights of Australian birds. These little birds are often in groups with multiple females and they're bouncing around the ground, and they're a favourite of just about every single person who visits Australia. The Splender Faean, however, is an inland bird, so it's not where I live and you have to travel some way to find it. I've actually only had one real good session with these birds, and that was back in 2012. During that time I managed to get quite a few photos I'm very happy with. This photo here that you can see, this is probably one of my favourites. If you look closely you can see a little flower in the bill of the bird. At the time I took this, I just assumed that that flower was for one of his girlfriends, but I've later found out that he only offers flowers to females he wants to have an affair with, not the girls that he's already got. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. But then in theory, the other girls in his group are probably getting flowers from other boys, so it all evens out in the end. I don't know if you can hear the kookaburras in the back.
Hey, so the side chick's getting flowers. Not the main. Not the main. He said I already got her on lock. I already got her. We talking about we giving flowers to the ones we want to have an affair with. To the side chicks. Okay, Splender Faean. I see how y'all get down. The bird was absolutely gorgeous. The bird was absolutely gorgeous, man. They dirty, but gorgeous.
All evens out in the end. I don't know if you can hear the kookaburras in the background, but it's good timing because that's one of the iconic species I want to talk about. If you hear this bird, you definitely know what it is as soon as you hear it. It's sort of all around Australia. It's a great bird to photograph, and I've had the pleasure a number of times. This shot that you can see is one of my favourite shots. I happened to be walking down a path and the bird just flew straight in front of me and landed at a tree on my left. I happened to have my camera on my shoulder. I put it down, checked the settings, focused on the bird and took this shot. I really didn't have to do a lot for it. It just fell into my lap, and that's what happens sometimes, and that's one of the joys of birding. The camera had to work really hard for this shot because it was ISO 3200, 1/25 of a second. So I really had to push it, not settings I'd recommend, but I didn't have any light, so I had to take the opportunity when it presented itself. It's a fantastic bird, an iconic one that you'll definitely see if you come to Australia. So
that was an incredible shot he got. Absolutely phenomenal shot of kookaburra. And I've seen that bird in multiple videos. That sound, is absolutely awesome. Dang, this is dope, bro. Like, to be able to be this talented, have gotten this good at photography and catch these absolutely incredible shots, man. I think that's just absolutely dope. But I'm gonna let them keep going. What other birds y'all got?
Australia is often referred to as the land of parrots, and for good reason. We've got a lot of colourful parrots. One of the most common and most colourful is the Galar. With its beautiful pink and grey feathers, this bird is a real highlight of the Australian bush, and it's literally everywhere. It's probably for that reason most people overlook it when it comes to photographing them. Overall, extremely beautiful bird that you'll be guaranteed to see if you do visit. You may not realise that the female actually has that red eye and the male has the black eye, so that's how you can tell the sexes apart.
Wow!
Following on the parrot theme, the next...
That's crazy. That bird was absolutely gorgeous, but I love the different genders got different eyes, bro. These birds, bro. Yeah, I'm scared of birds from an encounter I had when I was younger. But y'all about to make me fall in love with these birds.
Bird is the beautiful rainbow lorikeet. We've got a few lorikeets in Australia, but this one is by far the most common, possibly the most colourful. With those range of colours, it's easy to see how it's been given the name of rainbow lorikeet. I've had the pleasure of photographing this bird a number of times, and as you can see by this headshot, you are able to get very close to the species. It can be feeding on flowering plants in your backyard, so a great photographic subject and a bird you'll definitely see if you come to the east coast of Australia. I'm always happy to see them. They are very noisy, a beautiful but iconic Australian species. So the next bird...
I'm so freaking captivated by these pictures, bro. These birds are absolutely gorgeous, and these pictures are absolute perfection.
Bird belongs to an absolutely incredible family, and that's the bowerbird family. You may have heard of them. These birds are the ones that build those amazing bowers, and the males will spend hours and days building these elaborate bowers and then decorating them out the front. The species I've had a lot of time with is the satin bowerbird. It's fairly common on the east coast, southeast of Australia. And this is the bird that collects the blue bottle tops and shells and pebbles and all sorts of things. So sometimes you'll be walking through the bush and you'll see all of this garbage, and people might think, oh, it's just rubbish. But it's probably this bird's collected all these things for its bower. The females can be extremely fussy, and they'll come and inspect the bower, as you can see in this photo, and she's checking to see whether it's up to her standard. If it's not, he tears it down and starts again. But if he does get it right, he gets to breed, and he's happy with that. The adult male actually takes 6 or 7 years to develop this amazing satin plumage. The young males are actually green, so you'll often see a lot of green birds together, and you may just think they're all females, but in fact half of them will be juvenile males and the other half are likely to be female. So it does take quite a long time before they get that adult plumage. An absolutely amazing species that is actually pretty common in a lot of backyards. So if you do visit Australia, you'll likely see a bowerbird, which is fantastic. Okay.
Australia, I'm jealous, bro, because y'all birds are off the charts, bro. Y'all birds are incredible, man. And I love this, the female bird. Let me make sure it look good in here. Am I impressed? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm not impressed, you can start from scratch. Just like humans. If I'm not impressed, started from scratch. Very demanding females, I see. But, man, this is awesome.
So that brings us to the robin family. Probably my most favourite group of birds to photograph because they're just so cute and they have so many colours. We've got pink, we've got yellow, we've got flame, just about every single colour's covered. The species I'm going to show today is the red-capped robin, mainly because I was just so excited to photograph this bird when I was starting out. And I got that opportunity back in 2012, and I still love this photo, and it brings back a lot of fond memories, and I still love photographing this bird today. The male has the red cap and the red chest, and the female is more of a sort of a plain brown with a little bit of red on her cap. You can see in this shot the female's on the left and the male's on the right, and they're often seen together out in the bush. So a favourite little bird of mine that I love to photograph. So
those birds are freaking adorable. Freaking absolutely adorable.
That brings us to the Australian magpie. It has one of the most beautiful songs you'll hear in the Australian bush. I really do enjoy hearing it when I'm out and about. I'm fortunate that they're almost everywhere in Australia. Wherever you go, you'll definitely find a magpie. They're often in little groups. They're a joy to see and a joy to photograph. I was fortunate that I used to have a bird visit my backyard, and it enabled me to get a few nice shots of this species, which I'm still very happy with. The Australian magpie really is one of those iconic species. The next...
I feel like the last word Australians would use to describe the magpie is a joy. That's the last word they gonna use to describe that magpie. I've heard terrifying. Terrorist, scary. I've heard many things, but I've not yet to hear anyone call the magpies a joy. Keep it rolling.
I'm still very happy with it. The Australian magpie really is one of those iconic species. The next bird is the beautiful and elegant black swan. Some people may not realise that it actually breeds in Australia and is endemic. It's actually been introduced to a lot of countries around the world. I've had the pleasure of photographing it a number of times, and it really is a highlight anytime I get that opportunity. It is actually quite a big bird if you're not aware. I took these shots which has a little bit of habitat in the background, and it gives you a sense of where this bird is, and that's why I like these shots.
So freaking incredible. So freaking incredible, man.
So that brings us on to Australia's largest bird of prey, and that's the mighty wedge-tailed eagle. This really is a giant in the sky and a familiar scene in the outback of Australia. I've actually only had the opportunity to photograph this bird once, so I would love another opportunity. But I happened to be driving in the outback and noticed two birds on roadkill, which is often how you'll see them. One of them flew off, but the other one just flew into a tree nearby. So I've stopped the car, I've hopped out and handheld it. I've just taken a few shots of this bird in the tree, as you can see, and I was really happy to actually finally get some shots of this species. Most of the time you see them hovering around in the sky with their giant wing spread and that wedge tail which gives them their name. An amazing bird, and one I really want better shots of. The next iconic...
Guys, I'm so impressed with the birds. Like, but honestly, I'm more impressed with this man's photography skills, bro, and getting some of these shots, bro. They're absolutely stunning shots. They're majestic shots. They're absolutely incredible, man. Yeah. They're just captivating. They're captivating. But these birds are dope.
Next species is the Australian pelican. Pretty sure everyone's heard of this bird. It's got the enormous bill, and it's a giant bird flying around. I really wanted to photograph this bird when I first started out. In Australia, recreational fishing is quite popular, and they have filleting tables where the fishermen fillet the fish. And the pelicans have figured this out, and they come for a free feed. So it made for the perfect opportunity to get some photos. So I stood nearby one of these filleting tables, and I waited till the birds were flying in, and I just had my camera, my 400 5.6, and I was photographing these birds as they were flying in. I was very happy with this shot that I got, with the clouds in the background, the pose, and it's well lit, and it really captures the essence of a pelican, I believe. This brings us
to does, but I ain't gonna lie, them pelicans not as captivating as the other bird. That bird, it was a little on the ugly side, just a tad bit on the ugly side. But I once again love his pictures, man.
Amazing red-necked avocet. This is a shorebird, and it's one of my favorite species to photograph. And I had so much fun doing it. I had wanted to photograph this bird as soon as I saw it in the books, and it took me a few years to get that opportunity. But when I did, I spent hours and hours laying down in the mud photographing this bird. One morning, everything went to plan. I had perfect conditions, and I was able to get some of my most favourite shots of this bird. It's absolutely unique in the way that its bill is upturned and it sifts through the water. It's got that beautiful head, those long legs. It's an extremely elegant bird that's a joy to see if you do come to Australia. That brings us to the sulphur crested.
That was so cool. That bird was so... I'm loving it. I love that
cockatoo.
Bird.
It could possibly be the most iconic Australian bird with that big yellow crest. It is actually a really big bird. And believe it or not, I do not have a photo I'm happy with. I've got a couple, but they don't have their crest up, which is what this species is all about. So even though it's really common, I've just struggled to get a good shot, and that's sometimes just the way it is. But it gives me something to focus on in the future, and hopefully one day I can share that with you, photographing this beautiful species. It may have the most annoying bird call there is. It's like a massive screech, and it's not pleasant at all. Alright, next up is the little willy wagtail. I'm pretty sure every single person in Australia has seen this bird. It is literally everywhere. It's extremely friendly, and you'll see it bouncing around on the ground and on fence posts, clotheslines. Pretty much wherever you go, this bird will be chirping away and its tail wagging. So it's a favourite of many people, and it's a favourite of mine. It's only a little black and white bird, but it's full of character, full of attitude, and it's a great bird to photograph. It's actually one of the very first birds I photographed just because of how common it is. And I still photograph it today, and I've got plenty of them here on the property to enjoy. So if you do come to Australia, you'll be guaranteed to see the little willy wagtail. So
that willy wagtail is definitely adorable. I like that little willy wagtail.
That brings us on to the bird that's often referred to as a bin chicken, a tip turkey, or a dumpster diver. It's definitely not a seagull. This bird is an Australian white ibis. This bird is in a lot of big cities, and you'll often see it with its head in a rubbish bin, cleaning up all the human waste. It does actually occur out in the wild, and I was happy to get some photos of this in its natural habitat. It's arguably Australia's ugliest bird. It's definitely only one the mother would love, that's for sure. There's a little fantail here. But I'm still happy to...
Definitely one of the uglier birds. I can agree with you on that. But, hey, they say with bin chickens, who needs garbage men? When you got bin chickens, who needs garbage men?
Photograph any bird, even if it is this ugly. So that brings us to the Major Mitchell cockatoo, one of my favourite parrots. I had the joy of photographing this bird actually last year, and I got this shot which I'm extremely happy with. It's also called a pink cockatoo, and for good reason. You can see its sort of pink colours, and if you even look under the wing, it's got amazing sort of pinky orange colours.
Awesome.
And that crest is the key. With a lot of these cockatoos, they have the most amazing crest, and this bird shows off when it lands. It puts its crest up and it has those amazing colours, So ideally when you take photos of the species, that's what you want, but you have a very narrow window to do it. So I was happy to get a few shots. If you want to see this bird, you will have to travel a fair way inland to see it, because it's definitely not a common species. So that brings us on to the emu, probably one of Australia's most recognised birds. I believe it's on our coat of arms.
Hey, the birds that won the war. The birds that won the war. But I know that is on the coat of arms along with the kangaroo because they can't go backwards. So just a symbol of always moving forward. I absolutely love that. Emu is one of the uglier birds too. I'll tell you that. Yeah, that's competing with the bin chicken right there, man.
Brings us on to the emu, probably one of Australia's most recognised birds. I believe it's on our coat of arms. It's a large flightless bird, and you can probably see footage of it running madly across the desert. So it is an inland species, and you do have to travel to find it. I was fortunate to see it a number of times when I've gone inland, and I've got a couple of shots. I would like more, but these shots that I'm showing were taken in its natural habitat on open plains where you can see it out and about. I would love some shots of it with its young, because the male look after all the young. The young are very cute and stripy, wow. So one day I need to get some photos of some young emus. So that brings us to another parrot, and this one's called the gang cockatoo. You've probably seen a few photos of this species, as it is a favourite of many photographers. The male is the one with the red head, and it has that most amazing crest, and it just looks really cool. It's also got an amazing call, and you'll hear it. It sounds like a creaky barn door. So you often hear them before you see them, or you'll hear them feeding in the treetops as you're walking around. Fortunately, I've managed to get a few photos of this species when they were feeding on an introduced hawthorn tree a few years ago. The female doesn't have the red head of the male, and she's sort of a dark grey. I was actually pleasantly surprised when I photographed this bird to see just how much colour it has on its chest. And it's often when you photograph birds up close, you get quite intimate with them and you notice things that you don't notice from afar. So I hope you can see all the colour on this female's chest. Just admire the beauty of this bird. It's definitely a favourite of mine, and if you do visit Australia, I highly recommend trying to find this bird. Alright, that brings us to the tall...
That gang, bro. The gang. I always say gang. Or I say gang. Gang or gang. So that might just be my favourite bird off the name alone.
Tawny frogmouth. It's often referred to as an owl by most people, but it is a frogmouth. It's fairly common in a lot of backyards, and it's well known because when it perches on a branch, it often looks like a stick. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo of it imitating a branch.
You can barely see its mouth.
They're a fantastic looking bird. They've got beautiful big eyes. They're often in groups of 2 or 3. It's always nice when you come across these birds. I would love more shots of this species, as the photos I have aren't very good. But it's an iconic species nonetheless, and I look forward to photographing it again in the future. That brings us on to the honeyeater family. It's a large group of birds in Australia, as we have a ton of flowering plants, from eucalypts and grevilleas, that produces a lot of nectar, so we have a lot of birds that feed on the nectar. The honeyeater that I want to focus on today is the regent honeyeater. It's the bird that adorns this cap that I have. The reason I want to talk about it is it's critically endangered. I believe its numbers are as low as 500 or lower, so it needs all the help it can get. It's a beautiful bird that is pretty hard to see. I got really lucky with this bird that turned up on the coast, a single bird in a tree in suburbia. So as you can imagine, I raced down and got some shots. Unfortunately, a lot of its habitat has been destroyed, and that's why it's struggling. On a positive note, there's lots of groups doing a lot of good work planting trees and trying to care for the species.
That bird is awesome. That's definitely a gorgeous bird. I definitely love that.
Right, that brings us to the last bird, and unfortunately this bird's iconic for all the wrong reasons. It's probably Australia's most hated bird, and that is the masked lapwing.
It's not the magpie? Is that Australia's most hated bird? What's going on with this lapwing?
This bird terrorises people all around Australia. Unfortunately, it lays its eggs in very silly places. It lays them on median strips and out the front of people's yards, and it defends its nest and its young with absolute vigour. It dive bombs, and it has these big spurs that it attacks people with, and they make a really loud noise. Of interest, this bird looks slightly different the further north you go. So in Darwin I took this shot. It's got really large wattles, but down in the southeast it has much smaller wattles. So depending on where you go in Australia, the bird will look slightly different. Well, that brings us to the end of these 20 iconic Australian species. I hope you enjoyed looking at all those photos. I had fun taking them, and I was happy to share them with you. If you like this content, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see further videos. I'd love to get some comments below of what your favourite bird was. What did I possibly miss? Thank you very much for the support. Until the next video, bye for now. Take care. See you later.
Wow. I didn't know. So y'all tell me about that last bird. That's more hated than a magpie and it's more vicious than a magpie. Y'all talk to me. I'm intrigued. I didn't see the lyrebird here. Is it because is the lyrebird strictly an Australian bird or is it in other places? Because I feel like that should have been on the list if so, if it's Australia. But that was so dope, man. His pictures were off the charts. They were epic. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion? You can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy D Neal. Out.